3 years of herniated discs, L4 to L5, is coughing enough to cause the discs not to heal. Coughing on its own won't necessarily stop your discs from healing. So again, if you've got herniated discs and the bulge are going posteriorly, you've caused that through repeated excessive compressed flexion. So as long as you avoid the causes of compressed flexion, that will allow the disc to actually gristle, harden and heal up. The coughing won't really be enough to stop that process. However, what it will do is it might give you a jolt of pain if you've got an unstable joint. So as we break down joints, this is quite common, like what we call an injury cascade. So you'll damage one joint, it will try and heal itself. In doing so, it will become a bit stiffer because it's lost a bit of disc height. And then what you'll do is you'll start to wear out the joint above it. As you start to delaminate the collagen in that disc, in the annulus fibrosus, it actually becomes a bit looser and you start to get like a little, what we call like a rattly joint. So there's a good video on dynamic disc designs, but they've got one of their models that demonstrates how that works. And that's what McGill calls a micro movement. So it could well be that you've had a disc bulge, you've lost a bit of disc height, that disc has now become stiff or stiffer. So now you're just generating movement from a joint above it, and now you're going for that cycle of breaking down that disc. It's starting to become loose as that collagen delaminates. So when you cough, you get that little micro movement. So a way to avoid that is to make sure when you're going to cough or sneeze, put a bit of brace on, try and keep your head up. Obviously still cover your mouth with your hand or your elbow, but brace and then the brace is stabilizing, it's removing that little bit of instability which is causing that micro movement. But what you need to do is remove the movement habits and posture habits that are creating that wear and tear and making that disc become loose, and work on stability in that area so that the muscles can lock everything together when they need to and stop you giving that little jolt of pain when you cough. How do I help my lumbar stenosis? Depends on what type you've got and what's causing the actual issue. So stenosis is a general term that means a narrowing of the nerve canals in which the nerves sit in the vertebra. We have two main types. We have central canal. So if we look down on top of a vertebra, that little channel at the back that the nerves sit in, that gets narrowed. If we turn to the side, we also have the foramina, which is basically the outlets where the nerves branch off, and you can have inflammation in those as well. So basically it depends on what's causing it. So for example, in central canal stenosis, it could be arthritic in nature, like an inflammation, damage to the bones, or it could be to do with by hypertrophy, for example, of the ligaments in that area, because there's a lot of other stuff other than just nerves that sits in that channel. So we need to work out what's actually causing the problem before we choose a plan of action. For foraminal stenosis, it's pretty common if someone's got some sort of facet joint inflammation. So for that person, be very careful of extension-based movements and make sure they don't slip into excessive extension, so those facet joints are getting kind of clacked together and irritated to let that inflammation die down. So again, with all things, you need a thorough assessment first of all. So if you've got stenosis, it's a bit of a general term. What does the stenosis mean for you? So what type do you have? What's causing it? And then we can sort of set the rules of the game for you going forward from there. So again, we need to have as much specific, clear information on your injury as possible. And that helps us then, understand what we can't do, but also what we should be doing, which tools we should be doing going forward to give you the best chance of success. Can anterior hip tilt be the main cause of my back pain, or is it not a big deal? So anterior pelvic tilt is a proper medical condition. It's pretty rare. However, a lot of people I encounter have what I would call like an anterior pelvic tension. So what I mean by that is they just tend to favour overusing the muscles that put their pelvis in that slight anterior tilt. So they get that little bit like duck butt, or they're very slightly tilting their butt back. What happens when you're in that position is a couple of things. One, it tends to put your core, particularly your lower abdominals, in a slightly weak position to help your bracing. It tends to put your glutes into a slightly weak position, so it's harder to get the glutes to function correctly and do something useful. And it also tends to make you feel like your hammies are tight all the time as well. So what a lot of people will do is they've generally ingrained it usually as a response to try and protect their back. So kind of subconsciously know that uncontrolled flexion is a problem, so they tend to overcompensate by kind of lifting their chest and like keeping their back locked the whole time. And that in itself just makes the muscles, your erectors in your back, very tight all the time, kind of under load. And then usually what they'll try and do is if they go into the gym and train on it or try and rehab it, they'll ingrain that in what we call a position called an open scissor. So they're kind of ingraining that, you know, making this let go, the glutes kind of be lazy and overusing those lumbar erectors to kind of take the brace the whole time rather than actually using their brace. So what you need to do is kind of wean yourself off of that open scissor tendency by doing a lot more abdominal and bracing work, and also using, you know, doing glute work. So things like McGill curls and glute bridges help, and then later on down the track you could be a good contender for, as long as you can do them properly, things like ab wheel rollouts and possibly some sort of form of dead bug as well can help. But you've got to be with the mind that you're using those abdominals to control that. You're not just letting yourself slip into your usual habit of just overextending with your back, because that'll make you worse, not better. So again, it's not really anterior pelvic tilt, it's like an anterior pelvic tension, I would call it. You're just overusing slightly the wrong muscles that's putting your back or leaving your back a little bit exposed. What we need to do is pick the right exercise that kind of reverse that trend a little bit and just balance things out a little bit more.